Olá, eu sou Nelson Todt, presidente do Comitê Brasileiro Pierre de Coubertin, vice-presidente do Comitê Internacional Pierre de Coubertin e coordenador do Grupo de Pesquisa em Estudos Olímpicos da Pontifícia Universidade Católica do Rio Grande do Sul. Nesse momento em que me reúno aqui também com outros grandes protagonistas do movimento olímpico e dos debates dos estudos olímpicos na América Latina, como o professor Otavio Tavares, professor Danilo Ponciano, professor Daniel de Cueva, né? Também é importante referir o protagonismo do movimento cobertiniano na nossa região aqui da América Latina. Minha proposta desse trabalho, né, dentro desse escopo de debater a educação olímpica na América Latina, a partir de pesquisas e de reflexões teóricas, dá espaço para que eu possa falar um pouco sobre essas reflexões teóricas. Né? A ideia especificamente da minha fala, né, é poder atender aquilo que a gente chama de perspectiva filosófica do olimpismo. Né? Essa discussão vem sendo desenvolvida por mim e por outros colegas, como a professora Alessandra Scarton, a professora Fernando Fontoura, né, e estudantes do nosso grupo aqui de pesquisa, como Diego Bittencourt e Arthur Cardoso. Por que discutir uma perspectiva filosófica do olimpismo? Primeiro, porque é importante compreendermos, né, que o olimpismo é visto por muitos como uma filosofia de vida, que nasce com o pai daquilo que a gente chama movimento olímpico moderno, que é Pierre de Coubertin. Mas teria Pierre de Coubertin bebido de que fontes teóricas? A relação dos pressupostos, né, apresentados por Pierre de Coubertin na sua jornada de desenvolvimento do movimento olímpico moderno com algum filósofo de seu tempo ou até mesmo anterior a ele. Então, é a partir dessa ideia que se estabelece o objetivo desse trabalho: definir uma perspectiva filosófica de unidade para o olimpismo. Bem, a metodologia que esse trabalho se desenvolve, até porque é um trabalho ainda inacabado, né, é uma metodologia basicamente de análise documental, histórica e comparativa, que se fundamenta a partir dos escritos do próprio Pierre de Coubertin. E aqui a gente utiliza como base um dos grandes contributos, né, do Pierre de Coubertin, que escreveu mais de 16.000 páginas ao longo da sua vida, né? E aqui a gente encontra nesse livro de capa verde, que vocês encontram aqui a versão em língua portuguesa, ele já foi traduzido em vários idiomas. Ele tem as principais ideias de Coubertin, escritas por ele, sobre o olimpismo. Então, essa metodologia, por assim dizer, né, procura ver que filosofias, né, têm relação ou apresentam relação, né, com os aspectos éticos, pedagógicos e políticos do olimpismo. A proposta é justamente olhar, né, os eixos do olimpismo desde a perspectiva da filosofia helênica, né, onde seguramente Pierre de Coubertin tirou suas referências para a criação dos Jogos Olímpicos modernos. Para então a gente retomar ao próprio Pierre de Coubertin e tentar ter uma compreensão, oferecer uma compreensão de conjunto dos seus escritos. Então, essa é a metodologia que a gente vem desenvolvendo, né, a partir dessa proposta de trabalho. A estrutura dessa apresentação, a partir desse objetivo e dessa metodologia apresentada. Na nossa apresentação, então, basicamente parte de 3 itens. O que é o olimpismo? Quem foi Pierre de Coubertin? E, de alguma maneira, quem é ainda Pierre de Coubertin? E os resultados encontrados até o momento em nosso trabalho. Bem, o que é olimpismo? Nós podemos ter muitas definições apresentadas, inclusive por Pierre de Coubertin. Ele mesmo teve diferentes interpretações para a palavra olimpismo. Mas pode hoje aceitar-se a ideia de que o olimpismo, então, é uma filosofia de vida. E como apresentado na Carta Olímpica, essa filosofia de vida coloca o esporte a serviço da humanidade. Esta filosofia é baseada na interação de 3 elementos: qualidades do corpo, da vontade e da mente. Agora, o olimpismo também pode ser visto como algo que se expressa por meio de ações que unem esporte, a cultura e a educação. Então, diferente do que muita gente pode pensar, o olimpismo não se centra apenas no esporte. Existe intencionalmente, desde os primórdios dos estudos de Coubertin, uma relação muito estreita com as questões culturais e educacionais. Então, esta filosofia é um elemento essencial para o movimento olímpico e da celebração dos próprios Jogos. A gente pode dizer que esta filosofia, inclusive, é o que diferencia os Jogos Olímpicos de qualquer outra grande competição e evento esportivo. Bem, então, por assim dizer, é isso que torna o movimento olímpico e os próprios Jogos Olímpicos algo único. Bem, esse ideal que o olimpismo de alguma maneira busca, apresenta, é aquilo que a gente chama de princípios fundamentais do olimpismo. E isso dá uma origem, aos valores que são aplicáveis no campo de jogo, mas não apenas quando a gente pratica esporte. Ele é aplicado também e ganha sentido quando ele vai para além do campo esportivo. É quando ele encontra relação e ação direta na vida cotidiana. Bem, nessa perspectiva, quem foi Pierre de Coubertin? Quem é Pierre de Coubertin? Alguns dizem que Pierre de Coubertin é um ilustre desconhecido. Sim, ilustre porque foi capaz de fazer algo que transcendeu a ele mesmo, que é maior que ele mesmo, que é um movimento que há mais de um século, desde a sua criação na era moderna, tem alcance e repercussão global, mas ainda assim faz com que o seu criador e idealizador seja um desconhecido de muitos. Bem, Pierre de Coubertin acreditava que esporte e educação física, especialmente, não educação só no âmbito global, mas considerando a educação física como algo que está intimamente ligada à educação, esses 2 elementos, então, esporte e educação física, eram cruciais para o desenvolvimento holístico, completo, integral dos indivíduos e da sociedade. E tinha, na Grécia Antiga, como um modelo, especialmente a partir dos ginásios, famosos ginásios gregos, um modelo para essa visão. Coubertin enxergava que os antigos Jogos Olímpicos era uma plataforma que poderiam promover entendimento internacional, uma competição pacífica e ainda, como elemento principal, desenvolver mente, corpo e espírito. É algo ambicioso, né? Mas, na perspectiva de Coubertin, algo factível, possível, nesse modelo de olimpismo. No geral, então, a associação que Coubertin fazia com o helenismo grego, até uma redundante, né? Reflete a admiração que ele tinha pela cultura da Grécia Antiga. E na crença que desde então já havia nesses povos mais antigos, de utilizar o esporte e a educação como elementos de transformação, juntos, integrados, indissociáveis. Através dos seus esforços, Coubertin quis então promover esses valores e ideais difundidos ou presentes na Grécia Antiga. E também utilizá-los como uma fonte de inspiração para um movimento global, né, nessa perspectiva já mencionada de excelência física, intelectual e moral. Assim, já que não há grande espaço para a gente poder desenvolver muito mais nossas reflexões até o momento, a gente pode comentar que os principais resultados encontrados até o momento nesse trabalho nos leva a argumentar que essa perspectiva pedagógica, formativa, educacional que Coubertin trouxe e está inserida no âmbito da filosofia da educação, pode se organizar e pode ser analisada a partir de 3 grandes eixos, que dariam, então, o pano de fundo, o alicerce para o desenvolvimento do olimpismo. Nós encontramos nos escritos dele, de Coubertin, que a filosofia da educação, então, estaria situada dentro daquilo que a gente chama de uma área da filosofia aplicada, ou ainda filosofia prática. Não é o estudo da filosofia, mas sim aquela filosofia aplicada, direta, voltada para a ação. Então, por esta razão, está ligado, caminha lado a lado da ética, da política, da bioética e também de outras tantas áreas que, quando a gente coloca a filosofia na prática, elas, né, nos levam sempre a questionar, refletir e olhar e lançar um olhar crítico destas situações vividas, né, procurando fazer esse contraste entre pensamento e realidade. Bem, esses 3 eixos, a gente teria o elemento ético, dentro de uma ideia de concepção, de uma perspectiva das virtudes, onde a gente encontra a concepção de uma educação em valores. Então, um dos caminhos do desenvolvimento e aperfeiçoamento das virtudes, segundo não só Coubertin, mas a própria filosofia, é a educação das paixões. Na Grécia Antiga mesmo, essas paixões, né, patos, como traduzido para muitos, são movimentos do intelecto, mas também da alma, da nossa essência, né? E isso afeta de forma positiva ou negativa os nossos diferentes comportamentos em diferentes situações. Então, partindo da crença dos filósofos mais antigos, esta patos, esta paixão traduzida de maneira bem direta do grego, ela não tem logos, que é aquilo que regula as nossas decisões, os nossos comportamentos. Então, quando a gente não tem esse casamento, né, de educação das paixões, a gente não é capaz de desenvolver um ethos virtuoso. Bem, Coubertin pensou a educação esportiva, então, de forma a gerar aquilo que ele chamava de postura intelectual. Uma postura ético-moral, que estaria à disposição de todos. Por quê? Porque, através da mediação do corpo, todos poderiam desenvolver esta postura intelectual. E não apenas os seres privilegiados, que aqui a gente entende como atletas de alto nível, ou naquela época ainda, aqueles poucos que poderiam se dar ao luxo de praticar o esporte. Então, a partir disso, seria possível aperfeiçoar sua personalidade moral que cada um de nós temos, através de pensamentos ou abstrações. Só as poucas pessoas poderiam ser capazes de fazer isso sem a mediação do corpo. Então ele queria oferecer, através dessa mediação do corpo, uma possibilidade de uma postura intelectual, ética e moral para todos, não só para poucos privilegiados. Bem, o outro eixo que nós encontramos nas nossas discussões são as questões relacionadas aos elementos pedagógicos. Então, aqui surge a questão não mais empírica, mas de como, né, a gente pode desenvolver uma educação em valores. Como colocar em prática o desenvolvimento de virtudes no âmbito educacional. Então, é aqui que toma forma aquilo que a gente considera uma aproximação, um acercamento com a ética aristotélica das virtudes. Então, aqui a gente tem o exemplo do agente moral que aspira virtude, e que define o que fazer, o que deve ser seguido pela gente. Ou seja, aquele ser virtuoso que deve, então, buscar seguir um comportamento sempre de forma virtuosa. E que deve sempre questionar-se como um virtuoso agiria. Então, o professor, o educador, dentro dessa ideia pedagógica, dentro daquela ideia canônica, incorpora a figura de um mediador, de um regulador, assumindo aquela posição de formador, que é o que se espera dentro de uma prática educacional, inclusive esportiva. E esse formador, então, tem a tarefa, né, de servir como exemplo virtuoso dentro dessa ótica da ética das virtudes. Então, na prática dos exercícios atléticos, né, a gente sempre pode ter a ideia, né, de que não funciona uma educação atlética, esportiva, pedagógica, que não tenha uma intervenção de um educador, de um professor, de alguém, então, que entre como mediador e exemplo desta moral, né, dessa virtude. Então, ele pode oferecer aos seus jovens, aos seus estudantes, aos seus pupilos, o que seja, a missão, né, importante de desenvolver-se na direção da ação virtuosa, sempre a partir, né, do seu próprio exemplo. Coubertin teria dito: exponho tão somente a estrutura do sistema, mas podeis apreciar claramente qual é o compromisso do professor. que tato, que habilidade, que delicadeza exige e que dose de trabalho, de observação e de amor requer. Bem, o terceiro eixo, falamos do eixo ético, do eixo pedagógico, e um terceiro eixo que nós encontramos seria o eixo político. Para compreendermos melhor essa dimensão do pensamento de Coubertin, voltamos novamente à antiga Grécia. E lá a gente vai ver que existem algumas abordagens teóricas encontradas também em Coubertin. O cosmopolitismo, dentro daquela ideia da filosofia estoica. É aqui que os seres humanos encontram duas dimensões. Uma quando ele é parte integrante de uma comunidade local, ou seja, de um país, de uma nação, mas também ele é integrante de uma comunidade que transcende essa questão local, regional. É aquela dimensão onde ele se encontra como membro de uma comunidade global, universal. É isso que a gente vai chamar de cosmopolitismo, numa perspectiva da filosofia estoica, que é claramente também identificada em Pierre de Coubertin. Ele diria que o exercício físico, se concebido e aplicado de maneira correta, pode ajudar a forjar o caráter, tornar a polir uma comunidade e, inclusive, em tempos de democracia, oferecer um vínculo de união entre as classes sociais diferentes e o estabelecimento da paz social. Para mim, esta citação remete muito a essa ideia apresentada nessa perspectiva, então, da política, como um dos eixos também filosóficos de Coubertin. Então, indo para as considerações finais, a gente pode dizer que, a partir das diferentes áreas de abrangência do olimpismo, seu caráter interdisciplinar, tanto na questão da filosofia como outras áreas de interesse, sociologia, antropologia, meio que seja, a gente pode identificar uma consciência filosófica nos escritos de Coubertin. Então, reitera-se aqui a ideia que o olimpismo, nessa perspectiva de filosofia de educação, tem três eixos condutores: o ético, pedagógico e político, pelo menos esses três. E que, sobretudo, Coubertin se baseou nas ideias filosóficas e educacionais da Grécia Antiga. Era o que eu tinha para compartilhar com vocês hoje e espero que vocês tenham desfrutado desta breve apresentação e estarei à disposição, através do meu contato, para outros acercamentos, caso vocês tenham interesse. Saudações olímpicas, muito obrigado.
Hi, I'm Otavio Tavares, leader of Areta Center of Olympic Studies at the Federal University of Espírito Santo, and it will be my pleasure to present to you our research on Olympic Games at Rio de Janeiro 2016 Olympic Games. There is a huge debate on the concept of Olympic education, what Olympic education really means. For us, Olympic education is an education valued through sport based on values, symbols, rituals, histories, and traditions of Olympic movement. According to the Olympic scholar NAUL, the Olympic education could be developed through four different approaches. The first one, the knowledge-oriented approach, is related to data, facts, names, and histories of the Olympic movement. The experience-oriented approach is related to Olympic-kind activities like Olympic camps and mini-Olympics at schools, for example. The third, the competition-oriented approach, is developed through the sport contests themselves. And the fourth, the life-oriented approach is related to the establishment of links between sport and life. It's interesting to notice that it was just from 2002 that the host city became obliged to offer educational programs in years leading up to the Olympic Games. However, there is a lack of consistent evaluations of Olympic educational programs associated with Olympic Games. Thus, our aim it was evaluate the Transforma, the Olympic educational program of the Rio de Janeiro 2016 Olympic Games. So let's start to give you some information about Transforma. These are the aims of the program. Please notice that they didn't use verbs to teach or to learn among the aims of the program. The program reached a huge number of subjects. Some information presented on the final Transforma report are quite precise, while others are just estimated, but in any way are big numbers. Transforma also developed a quite diverse strategies. Let me present now some methodological details of our study. That our databases were the official data of the program, the geographical distribution of the program in the country, and the opinion of the subjects. As a design, we adopt ex post facto research with pre-experimental design, and we apply questionnaire and geoprocessing techniques. We also conduct interviews with Transforma team and a documental analysis. In numbers, from a universe of more than 11,000 PE teachers and coordinators, we got a sample of 575 subjects, and we established a margin of error of 4% and a confidence coefficient of 95.5%. To the qualitative variables, we use person correlation coefficient, and for the categorical variables, we use the chi-square. When we had two ordinal variables, we use Kendall's-Tau coefficient. Let's now present a brief data and discussion of the spatial reach of Transforma. Brazil is divided into 5 geographical regions: North, Northwest, Middle West, Southeast, and South. As we can see in this slide, most of schools and municipalities reached by Transforma were located in Southeast region, the same region where Rio de Janeiro city is located. Considering the reaching of Transforma by states, we notice that 71.1% of participants lived in just 3 states of the country: São Paulo, Minas Gerais, and Rio de Janeiro, which shows a quite unbalanced reaching of the program. We were also interested in observe the impact of Transforma on Brazilian educational system. We observed that 89% of municipalities reached by Transforma could be ranked on high or moderate level of development. Considering just the level of education, 96% of the municipalities could be ranked of high or moderate level of education. because Transforma somewhat reinforced a national pattern of inequalities on education. Now, let's present some data on teachers' opinion about Transforma. Most of them just got involved in the program in the very last year of the program, 2016, the year of the Olympic Games. The level of training of the PE teachers and coordinators, it was also quite low. Most of them took part in just one or two training activities. Of course, due to national ambitions of the program, digital platforms had a key role on the development of the program and its activities. Using a Likert scale, we asked teachers to evaluate what they learned the most through the program. As we can see, Olympic values and Olympic symbols came first, and Olympic sports came in third place. So, it's not surprising that the teaching of values, symbols, and new sports were the most common activities they carry out in their schools. We asked the respondents, the teacher participants, to evaluate the major outcomes of Transforma in their schools. Well, I apologize to have the titles of the columns in Portuguese, but let me tell you that the three major outcomes were to teach and to learn new sports, a bigger knowledge of the Olympic Games, and a bigger knowledge of Olympic values. So we find out here a consistency between what they learn and what they teach to the students. We also ask teachers about what they taught students, and we observed uh, uh, that most of teaching activities were related to a knowledge-oriented approach and experience-oriented approach, with a less number of activities related to the life world-oriented approach and competition-oriented approach. It's noteworthy that just 1 year after the Olympic Games, 57.7 of teachers were not using transformer material anymore. So, despite the national reach of the program and the huge number of participants, Transforma could be characterized as a program with a low level of articulation with the national and state and municipal educational systems, with individual participation, with episodic involvement, and a limited duration in time. As a conclusions, we can say that the objectives of the program were achieved. The knowledge of Olympic values and symbols, as well as the teaching of new sports, probably reached a level never reached in Brazil before. However, unfortunately, the program did not contribute to the improvement of educational inequality in the country, of the solving of educational inequality in the country. The program had a limited educational legacy, an uncertainty of lasting results. So, there is a need for continued teachers' education and that we can say that Olympic education should be included in national core curriculum as a way to a long-lasting result of Olympic education in our educational system. Thank you very much for your attention.
Hello, everyone. My name is Danilo Ponciano. I am from Guatemala, and I am going to present to you part of the discussion that we are having with my colleagues related to debating Olympic education in Latin America, research data, and theoretical reflections. And what I am going to do is present to you empirical evidence about how these social values are infused right now inside the curriculum of 6 different countries around the world. So, first of all, just to give you a little bit of background, we have to think that talking about Olympic values is not something new. This was something that in the ancient Greece was very useful and was highlighted. And we have to think that Olympism, the core is education, culture, and sport, which is part of this ancient Hellenic thinking, especially the Athenian gym, where people were talking about uh, using sport and physical activity to develop good citizens with a good way of thinking and also with healthy lifestyles. And of course, nothing is perfect. For a little bit of time, these ancient values were lost, especially during the Romans, where sport was changed for entertainment and violence. And during this time, these philosophical concepts of pedagogy and democracy were lost, and also the way of seeing physical education or physical activity to develop good citizens useful to their communities. Later on, we have to talk about physical education, which is also an ancient heritage of the Olympic Games. We have to think that we have two heritage. The first heritage was the Olympic Games that were revived by Pierre de Coubertin, and we have physical education based on the way of thinking of the Athenians of building um, good citizens. And right now, the schools are seen as platforms for developing role models, people that is going to be learning through the class, not only about physical skills but also life skills. And life skills are related to those social values that are going to make these young people to become useful and accepted to their communities and having an impact in others. So, thinking about this short introduction, my research was designed for the to achieve the next objective, to compare 6 physical education curricular policies at secondary level or secondary school to establish and know the types of values inscribed in their contents. So we want to see exactly which is the level of importance of these social values at high school and see how these are infused in those curricular policies. This research was guided by 3 research questions. What are the values that are usually introduced in physical education curriculum? What values are most commonly taught? What are the countries that our values are taught the most through the physical education class? This research was guided in 3 phases. Phase number one was the country selection. We decided with my colleagues to establish a very specific criteria. First of all, they must be from different continents, from different languages, and something that is really interesting is that we decided to compare curriculums from Latin America and Europe. So we have choose Brazil, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Spain, England, Portugal, and The main idea was later on to have a document selection. So the other criteria was to have access to these policies related to physical education in those countries. So we have access to the text and the document, the legal documents. And later on, we decided to use qualitative and interpretative methods to conduct a document content analysis to produce another document that will have different results and provide with different and new knowledge. For conducting the data analysis, what we did was to prepare 4 categories to analyze the policies. First, we divided in sections: justification, objectives, content, and evaluation. And later on, we measure the frequency of those specific values that we selected, thinking that previous research has discussed that some values are universal around the world, and the only thing that probably changes the meaning. But those values that you see are probably the most common values that we share through different cultures. For example, teamwork, rules, overcoming, discipline, perseverance, respect, fair play. And the results, we can see here the type of the frequency of the analysis of the values. We can see, for example, that Costa Rica was the country that have more frequency in the type of words that we look for in the curricular policies. Later on, followed by Spain and Portugal. And we see that in Guatemala, Brazil, and England, we have a little bit less frequency of those words. And we have different theories that maybe these values are not well considered in those curricular policies. Here you have a little bit of more information. As you may see, the red line is Costa Rica, and you can see that the value that is more repeated is respect, followed by tolerance and responsibility and fair play. We have Portugal, that they emphasize cooperation, teamwork, human development, rules, discipline as Costa Rica. And we can see that the other countries are less interested or less emphasize these social values inside their curriculum. So later on, what we did is to try to summarize these values and try to find the meaning, the universal meaning for those values that are emphasized in those curricular policies. We have respect, talking about forming good citizens with respect for human dignity, to respect the meaning of different social groups, to promote the strategies, to encourage respect and for the beliefs and opinions, to create equality and respect for the motor development of the students. Later on, we also talk about tolerance and see that the countries are emphasizing the tolerance for for the abilities of others, to have a tolerance and self-control during physical education, to have tolerance to the frustration of different sport contexts. We also discuss about rules, about the importance of molding behaviors, applying good techniques, talking about respecting the rules. We also have responsibility of living in harmony with the environment, to promote responsibility in sport practice in the community, to also respect the practice of physical education of others. We also discuss about overcoming, through the use of a physical education, to learn how to improve their personal best performance, to mold the strategies to manage fail control, to learn about the tradition of the countries, about the culture, about using the whole elements that are part of the community to have the ability to promote human rights. Also, this is related to human development, to think about teaching about having a healthy lifestyles for the students, the importance of physical activity and how they can apply different standards of hygiene to take care of their own safetyness, the cooperation, the type of learning to cooperate with others, and also to respect the progress of others, and creating good climate for thinking and sharing, working about teamwork, sharing these attitudes and values, being able to teamwork and highlight the solidarity during that time. And those are the values that we find that are important to promote to physical education. And we also have to mention solidarity, equality, and fair play, which were less mentioned in the curriculums but are important, related to have the solidarity of respect for others, the equality for respect and avoid the possible gender stereotypes or sexist skills that are part of some physical activities, and the fair play that is related to, of course, respecting and the different activities and respecting the rules that are part of these learning environments. The conclusions are related, first of all, that Olympic social values are an Olympic heritage, specific values, specifically related to the idea of the comprehensive training of body and mind that was part of the Athenian gym. And of course, we have established three labels of the meaning of the values. First of all, we have to think about which is in me, as Kant refers, that are values related to tolerance, empathy, discipline, cooperation. Other values that are external to us, which are tradition, politics, participation, and others that are part of the physical education, which are tactics, execution, competition, and victory. So, future perspective of this research, is it can be shared that it's important to continue working that in physical education can be and a space for teaching social values for future generations, specifically in those ages that are very close to the adolescence, which is a very important pillar for building better and good citizens. And of course, for doing that, we need to teach good trainers and education and educators, that understand that these social values are part of a pillar of the human life. So thank you again. These are the references of my presentation, and I hope that this can be useful for you. So thank you very much, and I send you a big hug from Guatemala.
My name is Daniel de la Cueva, and my presentation today is Olympic Education Definition, Proposals, Fundamentals, and Objectives. Olympism is a philosophy of life that uses sport as a transmission belt of education, pacifism, democracy, humanism, culture, and ecology principles. Olympic values preserve and reborn the Olympic Games. Olympic education is based on truth in youth and education, but our main problem is who explains the Olympics at school? Who explains the Olympic values? Pierre de Coubertin used to say that the future of civilization does not rest on political or economical foundation. It depends only in the direction given to education. He said, I restore the Olympic Games to ennoble and strengthen sports, ensure the independence and duration, and to enable them to better fulfill the education role in the modern world. Olympism has done more than simplify, intensify the sports movement. It has an open up new and fruitful path for physical education. And finally, the time has come to build an educational structure with architecture most suited to needed the movement. Olympic education, it is a set of formative practices which use in combination and inputs Olympic values, knowledge, cultural agents, circumstances, and social practice to materialize the reason to be of the modern Olympic Games, implemented in the curricular and extracurricular field, applied through a systemic, multidimensional, intentional, and integrated process. In order to educate in Olympism, it is necessary to adapt the contents because they are depend on different components and different perspectives and local needs. Olympic education, pedagogical named sport education. It is included in the Olympic Charter. The revival of the modern Olympic Games was itself an educational project, initially incorporated into the French educational curriculum. Coubertin conceived of Olympism as an educational reform through the movement because the Olympic values reflected and belief of sport as a school of life. Olympic education is not just about academic knowledge. It should not be limited to the games, the structure and organization of the movement, training for competition, but they should have much wider effect. It is a new source of education that preaches universal morality and values. Olympic education is a process, and the results of purposeful, educationally organized, and systematic human socialization. The concertation of the Olympic education in the curricular and extracurricular spheres could better contribute to the formation and development in the student's personality through a systemic, multidimensional, intentional, and integrated process. The proposals of Olympic education is about the concepts they used to use in sports and physical education. We can say they are conceptual contents, proceeding contents, and attitudinal contents. So Olympic education contents are attitudinal contents of physical education. An overview of the proposals is not exclusive for Olympic athletes or sports excellence. It's not just for only physical education classes. Proposes as cross-cutting content founded in the Olympic values and on universal values. It takes place inside the outside the formal education system. The task of the Olympic education should be to analyze the world of sporting and social cultural life with its different positive aspects and negative influences of the various manifestations in the contemporary Olympic Games. The relation between the contents and the values. They have to give an intention to directing the educational processes towards an ideal model of formation. They have explained, direct the activities of the educational process, and they make them individual, integrated, didactic particularities. The Olympic education should be alternative because they're changing with times, contexts, and different moments. And they should be alternative because it changes constantly the human development, the social transmission, and the growing of the children and youth people. The values. They are products of change and transformation throughout history. They have a special meaning, they change, and they disappear in time. They are referent abstractions that orient behaviors toward the social transformation and the fulfillment of a person. One of the most important examples we have to take about values is the concept of amateurism. This absolutely disappeared in our time. Integration of Olympic values to education because they are identified themselves, they related to things, facts, people, and feelings. For example, the Olympism as a way of life. They become evident because they're related to sport, the actors, and the Olympic movement. Well, a lot of things, the symbols, the anthems, and the Olympic movement, and they are structured. They are related to changes, circumstances of reality expressed in different circumstances. For example, the late and proximate COVID-19 pandemic in our world. Educators and teachers, each educator is a product of its educational, social, political, cultural environment. Teach by the example. They use implicit things, but not just the content. The educators must be prepared for Olympic education. The fundamentals of Olympic education ensure the first experience with sport is a pleasure. They facilitate the encounter with the pleasure that the physical activity and sports transmit. They highlighted the fun. They nullify duties of performance. They encourage giving the best effort and emphasize that the effort is and the work are valuable as success. They accept defeats without disappointment or trauma. They teach how to work to improve, and they preserve an atmosphere of positive participation. In the recent past, amateurism, loose meaning, excellence was not to get infected. Respect, it was a social distance. Solidarity is postponing the games. Fair play was the refugee participation. The important thing is not to compete, it's just to stay at home. And peace, it's a pending challenge. Values in action, they conceive, organize, and direct certain structural logics that analyze and reorient yourself in more valuable directions that rethink all areas of the human. They avoid to reproduction of human inequality, and they abandon the logic of accumulation. The objectives of Olympic education is how to learn Olympism, how to do Olympism, and how to be Olympism. The fundamental objectives for Norbert Müller, it is to make children and young people aware of the idea that the practice of sport throughout life is an enrichment and necessary complement to achieve other challenges if you want to develop and maintain a satisfactory sense of identity. The minimum contents talk about body, mind, spirits, fair play, multiculturalism, aspiration to excellence, and the history of the Olympic Games. And there's a very important point here. As the performance used to be increased and get better enhanced during training, the fair play is the same. You have to train with fair play to reproduce in competition. The conclusions: Olympic education is defined in a complete way. It is clear object of education, and that the subjects are children and young people. Olympic education programs should be aimed to the education system, but they can also be applied in the sports system and even become a political key for diversity, inclusion, and equality for the third age, human development policies, social welfare, participation of girls and women in sports. The educational management of Olympism should relate the institutes and university of physical education to be analyzed from a local perspective with the intention to establish proposals, approaches, and transfers approaches. Olympic education has a fundamental legitimacy and importance in human development through Olympic education values. It is essential for the trainings system. The reason to be of sports, high performance, the Olympic Games, and the Olympic movement It is to make the educational commitment concrete. Without the satisfaction of this premise, sport is just a spectacular globalized entertainment, a part of the entertainment market. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.